Amazing human being, yeah! Bullseye.
What's up? I'm Esnine, producer, turntablist, audio engineer. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter. My influences came initially from my brother taking me to the theater and watch like Breakin' and Crush Groove, which are classic, iconic movies. But I would say my real introduction to actually doing what it is that I do would be through my partner that was in my graffiti crew. His name is El-Sun. He's a producer locally, but he got the jump on learning how to DJ. He was the person where I went to his house and I saw actual turntables. And it was kind of like, can I touch them? And he was like, go ahead and mess around. And I messed around, not knowing what I was doing. And finally one day he's like, man, this dude comes to my house quite a bit. Let me ask him do you really want to learn how to do this? And I was like, yeah. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just playing record after record. And he actually sat down and broke down what turntablism and at that time early turntablism, what it was, mixing records and getting just for it. But I was already really enthralled with hip hop at that point. I was really sucked into like the culture, and it made sense. And from my initial like introduction through my brother taking me to go see these movies. Then after that, we were like, we want to do a little bit more than play records. And because after a while you're playing other people's music and you're like, I want to be a little bit more in touch and more in touch to what it is that all this, you know, there were so many things that were missing in the piece of the puzzles, you know, where like, how does this happen? How does it go from listening to this music, but how does it get made and why does it sound this way? So we used to get these magazines called Upstairs Records, and they would show like the latest production machines that all the top producers at the time. At the time for us, our heroes were like Pete Rock and Premier, and it would say they use this, buy this. You want to sound like them? Obviously, they don't go into detail on how hard it is to use these machines. But at the time, you looked at this magazine. If you're lucky enough to find it, and you got it, and you ordered them. So he got one. He got like the MPC, which is the 2000, which is a lower version of what Premiere uses, which is like MPC 60. And we were like, wow. So we didn't know what we were doing for like months. I'm very obsessive. So if I do anything that I really like, I get to a point where I just entrench myself 100% to a point where I ignore shit. Like when I was a kid, I was really into video games, so my mom would be like, come eat, and I would not come to eat. So I got like that about music and art. But a specific moment would probably be right after I graduated. I had been working for a little bit. I didn't really go to school right away. And my pops was like, so what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm working, I'm paying bills, I'm helping out. He's like, no, but what are you really doing? That's what you want to do? And I, at the time, I was really immersed in my music and DJing, but I didn't look at it as a profession. So I guess that would be the moment where I was like, well, maybe music is my profession. I mean, I spend day in and day out listening to music, doing music, try to perfect what it is that I do with music. So it would be that moment when my dad posed the question of like, what are you doing? Do you want to work or do you want to find a profession? Music took over my mind. Art fell to the wayside as far as like drawing and painting. But it still was hand in hand. So I was like, well, maybe I'll do like graphic design because I had lightly done it at the end of my high school years. You know, I had done some real like early on like graphic design, which was like the first Photoshop, big ass Max. But then I was like, nah, my heart's not in that. That's not what I want to do. And someone goes, hey, you know, James Dean, which is Destructive Bunny, he went to school in Arizona for music, for audio engineering. Man, you're always into like, I had a 4-track at the time, a digital 4-track, and I was always into really figuring out how it worked. They're like, maybe you should look into doing that. I was like, well, let me give him a call. And I gave him a call, and boom, he just sold it to me. So I was like, yeah, it makes sense. Why wouldn't I do that? And from one day to another, I called, got my tuition, worked out. My dad was like, look, I'll give you, if that's what you want to do, boom, here's some money to get you really going. And bam, I was off to audio engineering. I didn't look back after that. I was like, music and audio engineering and DJing and production are my thing. After that, it was a career for me. My certificate is in audio engineering for TV, music, and movies, and music business. Mainly the audio engineering side of it, as far as like, making things sound right before they go out to the public. Esnine, so 79, S and 9. It's my birthday, birth year, 79. But the S950 is like one of the first Akai MC samplers that like Premiere used and shit. It was one of the pieces of equipment that a lot of the iconic albums were made on. So it made sense. S9, 79. It's an ode to like my heroes, but it's also my birth year. So I was like, it's me. Because before that, I had like other names where I'm like, that's me trying to be a little too creative and it just sounds goofy. Before that was like KRS-ONE, which was like a play on. So in my graffiti crew, there was too many Carloses. Mexican plague that were plagued with the same, your name's Carlos, your name's Carlos. So my last name's Ayala, and my mentor, which is El Son, he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna stop. I'm stop calling, because every time people would be like, which Carlos is it? Is it Carlos Ayala or they were like, he was like, I'm gonna stop doing that. I'm just gonna call you Kayala. Then it got shortened to Kai, and I was like, you know what? I used to do graffiti. There's only one. That's a unique name, KRS-ONE. And the one comes from doing graffiti. But yeah, that was one of them. What was the other one? Harm One. It was just like, you're doing harm to turntables. It was like, that's so cheesy. Yeah, you look back on those things. I found some mixtape covers where like, oh my god, like I was trying to really go with that. It's horrible. I remember my mentor would be like, what are you? I'm gonna tell you that's not good. Luckily that didn't stick, but yeah, those are some of the early ones. I had tons of others, but that's a character for me, S9. That's like most artists deal with, not being secure. You deal with a lot of insecurity as an artist, and so that's essentially your superhero alter ego that you deal with, that allows you to be in front of thousands of people and expose yourself and be vulnerable. So it's still an interesting thing for me to look at it like. I'm any different, but I see it's like my defense line. Like that's the person I'm introduced to most people, but essentially I'm just myself. I don't really see myself as anything special or anything like that. I'm a Joe Schmo who is really addicted to music and making this my career and trying to share my passion with as many people as I can. When I got to a point where I had inspiration as far as music, it would have to be like the early 90s, basically the whole early 90s production movement, with the key figures being Pete Rock and Premier. Those guys made landmark moves as far as production techniques and what it is that we do with music that you still hear nowadays. So those are my heroes, my initial heroes. For Premier, it would have to be Code of the Streets. That was like, he took a sample that was just a small 2-bar loop, maybe even less than that. He slowed it down because it was jazz groove, and he gave it this eerie feel to it, and he put these drums over it, which the song called Synthetic Substitution. This is an iconic drum break, but the way he did it just had this eerie, grimy tone that worked, especially for the early mid 90s. For Pete Rock, it would have to be. I know most people say when they reminisce over Main Ingredient off their second album. His layering techniques on that were insane because he's using like 5-6 records. The drum breaks from something, the main loop is from something else. There's like little horn samples going on. They're all different records, but he got them in perfect key, which is insane. These records are from different eras, different genres, and he made it sound like a cohesive record, and that's amazing. Production's gotten amazing. I mean, technology's made such advances, which is funny because you see an interesting thing of like the high grade of technology and all these advances, but then they put things in like tape discs in a digital format. It's kind of like you tried so hard to get rid of the tape sound, let's put it back in. So I think we're in a perfect place for it because it's where the old and new meet. You essentially can do whatever you want and think of. You don't need a big band. You don't need just your ideas and go at it. You know? So it's an amazing place. But I think what we had in the '90s was the lack of. So necessity sometimes is the mother of invention. You know, and it pushes people to be creative, extra creative on that. And so I think that's what a lot of people miss from the '90s is that. There's plenty of that today. I think it's oversaturated because technology's made it easy for anybody to do it. But back then we had that. There's the lack of. You know, if you really wanted to do music back then, you better save up your money because it wasn't cheap for studio time or equipment. So I've read a lot of like creativity in that sense. It pushed you to be creative and really make it work, or just not do it. You know? So I see it going kind of. It reverts. It's funny. I've seen a lot of people that were on these amazing machines and their computer's so integrated to it, but they're starting to make the machines now stand alone again. It's just kind of reverting to where it was. I mean, they're loaded machines though compared to what we had back then. Back then it was like you had 10 seconds of sampling and make it work. You know, you figure out how to connect the record to it. But I see I see a melding of both, like old and the new. I know you have a lot of dueling going on between the youth and the older generation, especially in hip hop, where no one wants to give in to each other. But I think there'll be a happy medium of the new teaches the old and vice versa. So recently I just dropped my debut producer album. I've done other works with artists. I used to have a group in Denver called Prime Element. And we did 3 projects, maybe 4, considering some EPs. But recently I did my debut album as a producer, solo artist. And I featured people like AG, Fashawn, Rocka from Dilated People, and a couple of up-and-coming artists. There's that. And then now I'm working on a follow-up for that. I still haven't worked out the title. I got a couple ideas for the artist, but not anything I want to go out and put on the record yet. So a good point where I felt my frustration was a little bit after I found some minor success out in Denver, Colorado. So we were getting this thing in 2009. I became producer of the year through their publication that's associated with the Village Voice out of New York. It's called The Westward. And I was the first person to get really nominated for producer of the year for hip hop. I won it outright. Our initial debut release for my group, which was Set in Stone for Prime Element, got album of the year. You know, it was like one after another, and then after that we were getting booked at every venue. We had a couple labels that approached us that were like, we need demos, and they were like decently, you know, recognized the labels, you know, and we started touring hard. And after that success, I was like, wow, like it's happening. And it was, you know, and it is, but it tapered off, you know, for a hot minute, and it was, I felt like, you know, you go through somewhat of an identity crisis to a point, because you're used to showing up to venues and people know you get in for free, you get all these perks of being a recognized artist and your work's getting recognized. But I got frustrated because it was like, okay, this is cool, we're never gonna hit that next plateau of being a major signed artist, because I felt where it was happening, you know, the show that premieres on Sirius Radio played our single with, we had done a song with Fashawn and Evidence, and it got played in New York, you know, and then we got played on Hot 97 for a show for Ed OG hosted this show, and he asked for it. He was like, hey guys, send me the track. So we were starting to work with artists. We had done stuff with like Defari and all these people, notable people in the industry that I looked up to and the group looked up to, and then it tapered off. And you know, when we would do shows with some of the artists, they'd be like, well, when are you coming to this side of the business, coming out to LA and really making that second push to really blow up in the industry on a big, notable level? And it wasn't happening. I was so frustrated. It was just like, and I felt like we need to do that. I started coming up with harebrained schemes as far as like what music to make us pop. And I felt like I was like, I'm turning it into a job. This is not fun. I'm working hard to be famous and get all this recognition and validate my talent. And it was not done in a proper manner. It was just, you're pushing too hard, you're trying too hard. And after that, I just stopped, and I was like, I'm just gonna do this. Just do what we do, not focus on all these things, and let that come to you. And you know, we got picked up by an independent label out of Long Beach. It's no longer around, but it's called Kamikaze Airlines. But the owners of it were the group Ugly Duckling. They're a big hip hop group out of LA. They came up with like Dilated, Jurassic 5 and all that, and they signed us to a one-off for that project that for us was old. They were like, oh, that's an amazing piece of work. We need to help get that distributed everywhere a lot better. And they got us out in Europe. We got like on the do tour music. They used our music in do tours. And it was just like a realization of like, just do you. Don't worry about what you perceive to be fame and fortune and having your art validated by all that. You know, so that was definitely a moment for me. I got plenty of guilty pleasures where people are like, I was an awkward kid, and I think most artists are awkward, but so for me, things that I like don't really ever have an explanation other than I just like it. For me, it's gonna be Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, Islands in the Stream. Awesome song. The Bee Gees wrote it, or one of the Bee Gees wrote it, but for some reason that song resonates. Maybe it's nostalgia, but that's gotta be for me. I play it for her sometimes, and for my lady, and she cracks up. But it makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, that you would like that. So yeah, that's gotta be my guilty pleasure. I have a couple of them though. I'll go ahead and start with the cons. So the cons to it is it makes music and art very disposable, and it doesn't retain its value as much as it used to, because you get that instant gratification. It's accessible to anybody. It's bootleg right away. Put an album out, you put any art, boom, everybody has it. Everybody can copy it. Someone's making a meme out of your art. So it makes it disposable. It doesn't have. It has staying power, but you gotta work a little extra harder to have that staying power, you know. But that's very minimal. I think the cons are very minimal. You know what I mean? It forces artists to be. So the pros are gonna be this. It forces an artist to be more diligent and work harder at trying to make your stuff be more prominent and have that staying power. It forces an artist to have, you know, that extra little gusto that's gonna make you unique, that people are gonna be like, they have that X factor. So in that sense, I think it's good. It pushes artists to break themselves from their comfortable spot, and I think that makes anybody great. You get too comfortable, that's not a good thing. It can be a bad thing. So it pushes, you know, people to, and plus like that same thing where it makes music so accessible is awesome, and art. Anybody can see it. The people that have already released art, you know, nowadays the artists really don't need labels. They don't really need big money behind them. You need a good camera. You're head on straight as far as how to promote your stuff online, and boom, you're off to the races. You can blow the fuck up. And so another thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to kind of bring to Merced what I see in a lot of major cities, which is like boutique hip hop nights, boutique music nights, which is we cater to a Dilla night, and my answer to that is we're doing a night called the Mixtape, and it's an ode to like boutique hip hop nights where we pay homage to great albums, great artists, an element in the culture, or just anything significant within the culture, and that's our way to provide that here in the Valley, as opposed to having to drive to San Francisco or LA. So that's one big thing that we're trying to do. I hope I gave you guys enough.
Something, I'm sorry.
I hope I didn't mumble enough.
No, articulate as fuck. And call me Patty, dude. Come on, sir.
I can't.
Okay.
It's hard.
Hey, can you redo the where you can find them at? And don't use the word internet. It ages you.
I'm old.
Fine, I'm just saying.
All right.
Like, get at me on the internet.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.